legs and arms together, parallel to each other, head between my arms, my rump at the high point. Then, as I started down, I straightened my legs until, like an arrow, I entered the water with scarcely a splash. Each motion was executed skillfully as I sprang from the dock 3 feet above the river surface. It pleased me to be able to perform with such ease and grace. I did not know that the water below me was only 2.5 feet deep. From that moment on, James Hurst was a paraplegic, and only after extensive therapy did he regain the use of his arms. Even after the accident, he stayed heavily involved on his family farm, working closely with his brother Charles. He was very close with his brother Charles, and Charles assisted James both on the farm and in his social life. In 1941, Hurst began his 34 years as a professor of creative writing, and he was incredibly prolific. He published more than 600 poems, in addition to several books of prose. The majority of his writing reflected the life of the Iowa farmer. More information about James Hurst can be found on the James Hurst Digital Archive as a part of the University of Northern Iowa Library. His house in Cedar Falls, Iowa, is now the home to the Hurst Center for Arts. Before beginning my analysis of the people of the land, I want to leave you with a quote about the song cycle from Dr. Patterson. And I quote, "These 8 poems of James Hurst all relate to the lives of professional agronomists, otherwise known as American farmers. Their stories spin out a narrative of joys, challenges, and tragedies encountered in a farmer's life in an all-consuming cyclorama of nature's endless cycles." What is a song cycle? Oscar Thompson in the International Cyclopedia of Music and Musicians states, "Many composers," and I quote, "many composers have published groups of songs by one poet or several poets, but to be a song cycle, the text properly should have a common theme or story. The common theme and story in People of the Land is the life of the farmer in Iowa during World War II. The speaker grows through each of the songs and matures into ultimately his passing. The cycle is framed by 2 songs, both in F major, that take on the viewpoint of the farming community as a whole, while the internal 6 songs make up 2 smaller sets of 3, showing the growth, struggles, and life of the Iowa farmer. The song cycle begins with the invocation. Invocation acts as an invitation to join the farmer as kindred spirits in farming as a community. The cycle follows the turn of the seasons as well as the growing and maturing of the farmer, until ultimately his passing. Next, we have March morning. In March morning, the story of our farmer begins in early spring by watching a late snow smother the earth, which delays planting and adds more days of bitter cold chores. Following March morning, we have the happy farmer. Even though the weather is not always ideal, the farmer is happy and proud to live on the farm and care for the land, no matter what the condition. This happiness seems short-lived as he ponders the old admonitions. As the farmer gets older, the war exacerbates feelings of loneliness, fear, and anger. These dark thoughts lead to visions of the army. In the army, countless neighbors, friends, and family march away to the war and never return. The farmer, once again, is left behind. The captain assures about the farmer's close friend being called away to war, and the farmer watches how his friend's family disregards his hard work and sacrifice. The community respects and honors this man for all that he is and has done. The second to last song is Fog. A hard life of labor has aged the farmer while he reflects on his farm. He remembers his neighbors that have gone away to the war and feels pride for maintaining his farm and taking care of all of the members of his community. And I quote from the poem, "With my permission I feed the hungry. In my denial there are no poor." The cycle ends with the death of the farmer. In When a Neighbor Dies, the community once again gathers to honor the life of their friend and neighbor, realizing that their work on the farm must continue, and they are blessed to have known him. Dr. Patterson's composition style reveals influences of jazz, American folk music, and American hymnody. As a lover of American folk music, it is important for Dr. Patterson to include the sounds of Iowa. The use of fourths and fifths and melodies and accompaniments is prevalent throughout the song cycle. There are many quartal and quintal harmonies, along with the standard tertian harmonies. The use of introductions and interludes adds atmospheric effect while foreshadowing, mirroring, and emoting the text. This connected musical material can be found through the song cycle, unifying each song with introduction to postlude, while also giving respite to the singer. The piano becomes a character and a participant with the voice throughout the song cycle as the story unfolds, adding the emotion, the depth, the understanding, and even comedy to the text. In the accompaniment, there is a free use of chromatic harmony while maintaining a traditional melodic expression. The first song in the cycle, Invocation, is through composed in 4/4 time in F major. F major frames the song cycle, while internally there are two sets of three. The second song, March Morning, is a binary setting in 4/4 time, beginning the key of F sharp minor, before modulating to C major and ultimately E flat major. The Happy Farmer is a modified strophic song in E flat minor and 4/4 time. The last song in the first internal set of three is The Old Admonitions. In this song, we have our first instance of 6/8 time in C flat minor. But this strophic setting modulates to E flat major and changes to 4/4 time to reflect the change of emotion in the text. Beginning the internal second set of three is The Army. The Army is a modified strophic setting in 6/8 time and F sharp minor, mirroring the first song in the internal set of three, March Morning, that also began in F sharp minor. The Captain Shore also mirrors the first set of three in the key of E flat minor before modulating to E flat major. This song is the only other through composed setting after the very first song, Invocation. It is in 6/8 time. The final internal song, Fog, is modified strophic setting in 4/4 time in E flat melodic minor. The last song in the cycle is When a Neighbor Dies. This song frames the song cycle by ending in the key of F major, although the sadness of the poetry warrants a modulation to F minor. The form of this final song is debatable between a modified strophic setting, a modified rondo, or a ritornello form. The range of the entire cycle is from A2 to G flat 4. Now I will begin my brief analysis of each of the 8 songs in the cycle. Invocation acts as a true invitation for farmers to gather and sing together for their passion of their livelihood. The song begins with an introduction reminiscent of a church hymn with homophonic texture and familiar chord progressions. The first 4 measures act as a procession of the community to join in the singing. The interval of a fourth is clearly set as connected material throughout the cycle. From the very first 2 notes of the introduction, we see stacked fourths in the vocal line. They return shortly in the song to take on the meaning of the Judas tree motive, which I will speak about momentarily. I will now sing the first 8 measures of invocation, displaying the procession and invitation to join in singing. Next, I'll speak about the Judas tree. The Judas tree acts as a very important symbol in farming culture for its indication to start planting at the beginning of spring, when the tree begins to bloom its bright red flowers. However, it is also an important religious symbol reminding farmers of the betrayal of Judas to Jesus. It was at the later name Judas tree that Judas decided to hang himself for shame of his betrayal. I will now sing measures 29 through 36 in reference to the Judas tree. The second song in the cycle is March Morning. The title is ironically spelt for the mourning of the farmer, for late snow coming in March, delaying planting and leading to an even longer winter of cold chores. The song begins with an atmospheric introduction displaying the late and vicious snow that arrives in March. This binary song creates a stark difference between the A and B sections. The A section is an aggressive recitative style declamation, while the B section is lyrical and restrained. with brief moments of erupting emotion. The poem reminds us that the farmer is completely and utterly at the mercy of Mother Nature. This next lighthearted song, The Happy Farmer, offers a view into the unapologetic happiness of a young farmer proud of his profession. This short, modified strophic song offers a brief emotional release to the struggles and hardships of farming. The narrator sings of his love for his farm and how it may not be perfect, but it is home. Quoting from the poem, "I'd rather live here than on no farm at all," Dr. Patterson captures the lighthearted nature of this poetry through an energetic introduction and interlude paired with the simple and lighthearted accompaniment of the vocal line. I will now sing measures 1 through 13 of The Happy Farmer. This example will leave you with a feeling of the comedy and lighthearted attitude of the farmer. The next song in the cycle is The Old Admonitions. In this song, we see a different side of the farmer, a little later on in his life and a little less naive. This poem tells a tale of frustration as the farmer, bound by the land and family responsibilities, remains behind on the farm as friends march off to war, and that the girl that he loves turns him out of her door. It begins with a tarantella introduction that seems almost out of place, but it acts as a wonderful juxtaposition to the 4/4 verse 7s. The tarantella was traditionally a dance to excise poison or evil spirits. The farmer is excising the old admonitions from both the girl that he loved and the minister. Each verse begins in 4/4 time, but dissolves into an accelerating 6/8 as the frustration rises and is overcome by the next interlude of the tarantella. The final line of the song proves the resolve and the determination of the farmer of better days ahead, with the final measure ending in 4/4 time and in the first major chord of the song. Here is the first 16 measures of the old admonitions, beginning with the tarantella introduction. I'll turn on the mic. As you see, I'm going to leave you on some of these cliffhangers, so it makes you stick around for the second half. The next is the army. The army shows the internal turmoil of the farmer left behind during the war. The picturesque descriptions in the poetry show the horror of war and how the farmer is a bystander, left behind watching the soldiers march away and never return. The title of the cycle comes from the second stanza, and I quote, "The people of the land gape in fear and awe to see the flags embroidered with texts from the moral law." End quote. The accompaniment of the song depicts the endless movement of the army. Even though it seems to go away, it always returns. I will now sing measures 13 through 31 of the army. Listen for the returning movement of the army.
People of the land gape in fear
The Captain Ashore is the only other through-composed song in the cycle after Invocation. The text tells a story about a farmer whose family is ungrateful for his work and sacrifice, but he is admired and cherished as a respected member of the community who is appreciated and honored as he leaves for war. The distinction between the family and the community is clear from the time and key signature change in measure 27 from E-flat minor to E-flat major and 6/8 to 4/4 time. The music demonstrates the feeling of a sea shanty, for sea shanties often tell a story of sailors, their families, or their work. Listen carefully in this next example for the modulation and time signature change that tells the difference between the opinions and viewpoints of the family versus the community. The change is quite striking. With the musical setting true to its title, Fog is set in E-flat melodic minor and is the only song in the cycle to begin without an introduction. The song's form is modified strophic and the accompaniment is filled with chords and arpeggiated movement. The first measure of the vocal line is all intervals of a fourth, and each stanza follows this pattern. The interval of a fourth present in all earlier songs becomes even more significant throughout this song. The narrator finds himself alone on his farm, where he feels his isolation from the world around him. But he finds peace, contentment, and gratitude for it all. I will now sing measures 18 through 28 of Fog. Notice the use of fourths in the melody. This is a moment of exile I cherish. I am no stranger to my own I just can't wait to sing all of this for you, so the cliffhangers are just as hard for me. The final song in the cycle, When a Neighbor Dies, returns us to the key of F major that first invited the community of farmers to gather to sing of their passion for farming. However, this time the community gathers under different circumstances to bury one of their own. This sadness leads us from F major to F minor. The poetry depicts both the personal and professional life of the farmer and his impact on his community. The last page deals with the overarching acknowledgement of death and recognizes the continuation of the farm. This is made clear by the unmistakable dirge that enters on the last page of the cycle. I will now sing an excerpt from earlier in the song of When a Neighbor Dies, measures 23 through 36.
No
I would like to take a moment before the intermission to acknowledge some people that made this all possible. I would like to thank the Hearst Foundation, Professor Dennis Jesse, Dr. Sims, Dr. Hendrickson, and Dr. Walker, all members of my committee. Thank you to Michael Borowitz for his collaboration and amazingly expressive and beautiful playing. Thank you to Dr. Patterson, who I know is listening right now on the live stream. Without you, your encouragement, care, and time, this project would have never happened. Thank you for being my friend and mentor. Thank you to Scott Covelti for expertise and willingness to speak about your time and relationship with James Hearst. Thank you to Stephanie for all of your care, help, and love through this process. And thank you to my family for the use of all the photos you're about to see during the performance of The People of the Land. We will take a brief intermission and come back with the performance shortly. And here's my bibliography. Amen.